assume that they are gathering news as best they can and will be able to transmit it to you after the Iraqi officials censor it as is their wish. We at CNN would only suggest to the Iraqi officials, if they're listening and could soften their hearts for the free flow of information, to let our correspondents reestablish communications with the rest of the world and continue their reporting. We would hope they would want to do that. Now let's turn to tonight, when about 7 Scud missiles have been launched from Iraq toward Israel, some of them striking there. No sign that any of them bore any poisonous gas or warheads. We've been sitting here this evening listening to all the reports, two of us here, James Blackwell and I, and we're joined.
Authorities said that people throughout the Jewish state could leave their sealed rooms. Earlier, 4 hours ago about now, sirens blared throughout the country and missiles came hurtling toward Israel from Iraq. We know that there were at least 7 missiles reported into the Jewish state. At least 2 fell around here. You're looking behind me north toward Haifa, where several fell, and some neighborhoods this way and south of here also were hit. On Israeli radio, they reported that one of the communities that was struck by a missile included residents which are elderly and laborers. I looked at some other videotape of some of the damage. You could see smoke and fire, rescue vehicles, some buildings that were blackened by the explosions. Authorities saying that they were not chemical in nature, that these were conventional weapons that were used by Iraq. I have been inside a sealed room at a hotel about 15 minutes from here, and you're unable to look out and see anything. On a quick drive here to the studios, the streets are completely empty. There's just nothing moving except a lone police vehicle or 1 or 2 other courageous folks or perhaps journalists. And the police emergency vehicles are moving through the streets. You can perhaps hear sirens behind me. It's certainly a very eerie, tense calm right now here in Tel Aviv. We've spent several hours in a shelter. Everyone had to wear gas masks. Once we were allowed to take them off, then we put them back on. Very scary to be here. Israel did expect some retaliation from Iraq. One official last night, several hours before the attack, said he expected something because Saddam Hussein had had a bad day. The injuries reported to be less than serious, perhaps 7 people injured in these missile attacks. Authorities are still trying to determine how many and how many people exactly might have been injured. Authorities have imposed a higher state of alert, a state of emergency, civil defense emergency. People are still told to stay indoors. This is Richard Roth, CNN, reporting live from Tel Aviv.
Thank you, Richard. Patrick.
Right now, we're going to check in with CNN Pentagon correspondent Wolf Blitzer for the very latest. And Wolf, I guess the big question.
Yeah, listen. Yeah. Very good. Hello?
Again, that was videotape that CNN just received of the missile attack, the Iraqi Scud missile attack on Tel Aviv. You have heard the Israeli health minister telling CNN's Linda Scherzer in Jerusalem that 7 people have been lightly injured during that attack. They are reportedly hospitalized. The minister also said that Israel is still expecting another attack, and he predicts that it is not over. We are, of course, monitoring things in Jerusalem and in Tel Aviv. We will keep you updated. Patrick.
Susan, we're going to check in with CNN senior White House correspondent Charles Bierbauer right now. Is live at the White House. Charles, the Israeli health minister also said, and paraphrasing here, that Israel can fight its own battles, but presumably there would have to be some consultation with the White House or Pentagon about what exactly the Israelis are going to do. Are those consultations going on now behind you?
Did you know it's tough getting business people to agree on what's best? Yet business people do agree. Nobody beats AT&T when it comes to long-distance service. In an independent poll where users rated their carriers, AT&T was unsurpassed in the best technology and best service categories and was voted #1 in overall satisfaction. So now that we've agreed on AT&T, it's back to business as usual. Quality, another AT&T advantage.
I go to LensCrafters because with my job...
Shortly before that happened, the Israelis were ordered into shelters as specified from Israeli defense officials. Israel was, of course, expecting some kind of attack. Saddam Hussein, Iraq's president, had said that if push came to shove, he would certainly attack Israel. Tel Aviv is some 300 miles from Iraq's western province.
There was a great deal of surprise that the Iraqis, based on some, I guess, preliminary euphoria, you could call, as far as the success of the multinational force, their airstrikes knocking out their Scud missile capability. But obviously, these pictures right here, this video shows that that was not the case, and that the Scud missiles were able to be launched from Iraqi positions, whether they were mobile or fixed bases. There's been some reports and some speculation that 80% of the fixed missiles sites were actually wiped out in that massive air attack last evening. However, as I said, this obviously shows that there were some missiles that survived, and they were able to be launched toward Israel and strike Israel. Again, they did not have any chemical warheads on them. You see, the destruction in areas was very significant, but there was no chemical warheads on any of these missiles.
Now, reportedly, there is no sign as yet of Israeli retaliation. We have heard various Israeli officials saying tonight that Israel reserves the right to act however they feel is in their best national interest. Sources tell CNN Steve Emerson that Israel is expecting yet another missile attack. It does take 90 minutes to replace fuel in the mobile Scud missiles.
And, of course, we will keep you updated as more video comes in. We will show it to you as soon as we get it. Susan?
The Allied forces are continuing their barrage, meantime, of Iraq tonight, while Iraq made its first counterattack. CNN's Jennifer Michael reports on the latest events.
Those were believed...
At the CNN Bureau in Jerusalem and across Israel, people scrambled to put on gas masks, as Iraq apparently made good on its threat to respond to an Allied attack by launching a missile strike on Israel with powerful Soviet-made Scud missiles.
Some people here at the Bureau are putting their gas mask on, and I may do the same very soon.
Israeli residents were prepared for a chemical attack, but Israeli officials later reported the warheads were conventional. In the darkness, the damage was assessed in Tel Aviv. The city Iraq had pledged to strike.
There has been an unprovoked attack by Iraq, jeopardizing the lives
Israeli government. Now, just because President Bush spent time in the private quarters doesn't mean that important meetings were not taking place. Apparently, the focus of much of the attention occurred in Scowcroft's office, the president's national security advisor. Secretary of State Baker was here this evening, and it is assumed, perhaps, since he is the one who placed the call to the Israeli government, he spoke by telephone to Prime Minister Shamir, that is when the call occurred. But he called the Prime Minister to assure him, essentially trying to persuade him, I'm sure to say, trying to urge Israel not to retaliate, not to launch an attack against Iraq. Susan?
How worried is the U.S. government that Israel will retaliate?
Susan, I think as we speak, it's fair to say that the government is very worried indeed. That appeared to be the focus of the meetings here tonight in Mr. Scowcroft's office. Assistant Deputy Secretary of State Eagleberger was also at this meeting. You'll recall that he recently returned from a trip to Israel. Apparently, his mission there in discussions with Mr. Shamir, his mission was try to convince Israel not to even launch a preemptive attack, since for some time now, Iraq has been saying that this is exactly what it's going to do. Baker, the United States, wanted assurances of some sort that it would not launch a retaliatory attack at all. The fears are so great here, perhaps, that the anti-Iraq, the Arab coalition, might possibly come unglued, so to speak. Susan?
Thank you, CNN's Pam Olson, keeping us up to date with the latest from the White House. Patrick?
Well, been lots of swift reaction to the second day of war in the world financial markets. For the very latest on that, let's go to CNN's Bill Hartley, who's live in New York right now. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Patrick.
The theater of war, of course, is the Middle East, but there is drama being played out in financial markets around the world. The Tokyo stock market gained 400 points in early trading, reversed that trend on the news of the Iraqi attack on Israel, losing about 100 points. It is now up 550 points at a level of just under 24,000. Trading, though, is light. Other Pacific Rim stock markets are mixed today. Traders yesterday pushed oil prices in New York to their single largest daily drop ever. The attack on Israel also reversing that. The Brent North Sea crude right now is trading in Asia at $19.80 a barrel. That's up by 55 cents from yesterday's close. Dollar is gaining, up 1.5 yen against the Japanese currency, a half a cent against the British pound, and up about 2/3 of a penny against the German mark. Gold has regained some of the luster. It's up by $3.10 an ounce. It dropped $30 in New York. We will continue to update you on the reaction in global markets. From the financial desk in New York, I'm Bill Hartley. Bill Hartley, thank you very much. Many areas of the United States have been rattled by bomb scares since the war in the Gulf. So far, though, no explosives have been found. But nationwide, security has intensified to ward off terrorist attacks in the United States. CNN's Anthony Collins has more from Washington.
Police were out in force in front of the White House, bracing for any possible violence, whether from anti-war demonstrators or terrorists. Most experts caution they see no immediate threat of any organized terror campaign in the United States, but security in the nation's capital was tightened to record levels, this amid FBI reports that known terrorists have entered the country. For the first time since the Vietnam War, White House tours were canceled for security reasons.
I don't feel safe anywhere, to tell the truth. So every big point where a lot of people are, every tourism city, airport, train station, everything is kind of dangerous.
At the State Department, garage entrance barriers were raised against potential suicide truck bombers, and new parking restrictions went into effect. Some doors were chained shut. Police used special bomb detection devices to check delivery boxes.